Good morning. So we're going to try to make some oyster stew. Yes, that's what I said. Oyster stew. I'm using carnation milk and going to add a little onions. Going to let it heat up for a little bit. Let the onions get cooked till they're almost translucent. Then we're going to add the oysters. Um, I wouldn't normally use raw oysters, but I don't have enough time, and it takes the oysters way too long to cook. I usually cook the oysters separate, so when you do the stew, you don't end up with raw oysters in the stew because the milk will start to curve if cooked too long and too hot. So it's a little tricky to get between. But I'm going to remove all the oil from it as much as possible. Now, I should be using raw oysters, but this will have to do for right today. So I'm going to heat it up and not let the milk cut. This is what she looks like. All right. So we're going to add a little bit of onions. Not much. Now we wait. Yes, the clock is ticking. So I may have to pause this for a little bit because it's going to take a while for this to cook. I can't cook this fast, so it has to cook medium to low, so that the milk doesn't curl. So I'm going to let this simmer for a little bit, and then I'll be back when it's nice and ready and we're ready to put the oysters in. Okay, so this is almost done. This is more of the vegan version of oyster stew, and I was going to do the can. It was going to do the other ones, but I forgot. I need the milk juice that comes in the can. And the other one doesn't have it. And I'm gonna have to let this sit and simmer. And this is just regular whole oysters in a can. You keep the juice. Do not throw the juice in the trash. Yeah, there we go. Now we're going to let this simmer for a little bit longer. Oh yeah, oh yeah. That's the magic touch. Now, I've been plotting. As you guys always know that I'm always plotting something in my little head of mine. I said, while I'm making oyster stew, I have some mussels left over. What about making some mussel oyster stew? So I'm going to peel out these mussels, take them out the shells, and put them in with the which come and let it all simmer for a while. And when it's done, we're going to do the taste test. So I'll be right back. Okay, we're back. Here's the final test. Now, what I made is a virgin version of oyster stew with mussels added. I used the vegan butter instead of regular butter, and I used carnation milk instead of regular milk. Now, if you want it more creamier and thicker, I would use regular milk with regular butter, and I would use half and half. But me, I like to cut calories, so this is as thin as I can make it. Look at that, Holmes. Look at that. Isn't that just delicious? Isn't that just delicious? And you can see the steam coming off that. Let's see what this tastes like. I got my fingers crossed that it came out good. That's not too bad at all. The coconut butter, unlike conventional butter or margarine, gives it almost a coconut back taste to it. So it's almost like eating coconut oysters, not like the regular oyster stew. This is very different from what I've ever tried before. But the broth is what's making it. Just like in conventional oyster stew, it's all about the broth. The broth is the main flavor of it. And this, I have to say, if I had to compare this with oyster stew, it would be close. For some, this has a different kick to it. Oh gosh, that broth is so good. You may want to try this. But it's not bad at all. It's different, but in a good way. Regular broth, have you ever had oyster stew before? You know how it's thicky and kind of creamy. Like, this is not as much with the cream because the half and half and the whole milk is, and the butter's not in it. Add all that extra fat in. But this is actually not bad at all. This may be my next replacement for oyster stew. And if you ever bought it, you know it's expensive and it comes in a little teeny can. But what I did do is I did not waste these. I went ahead and used these along with the oysters. And the most important part of this is the juice inside. Do not drain off the juice. You keep the juice and you'll mix it in with the broth. Other than that, if I had to rate this on a scale of 1 to 10, I would give it a solid 7. This is pretty good. This is actually pretty good. And it's probably probably at least a few hundred calories. Yeah, probably more than a few hundred calories. Less than if I was eating the conventional oyster stew model. But this is pretty good. Look at, I mean, doesn't that just make your mouth just want to water? I mean, mussels and the oysters and all that goodness in there. Until next time, stay healthy.